Donnie here from About 2 Acres. I know you guys, I've been trying to get some footage on welding, but you know, I'm struggling with the machine just a little bit on settings, and I don't want to be unfair to a machine, and a lot of this is me, it's not the machine. So what I've done is I've put together some stuff that I've been practicing on. And I'll show you this, but before I do, I'm going to show you something about the machine. I've already got some things that I really wish were better on the machine for somebody that was learning, you know, for somebody that has welded and stuff. It's not so much a concern. In flux cord welding, this thing welds hot. And I'm having a little struggle trying to get it, and in and of the welder itself, and it may be the wire, and it could actually just be my technique, but like I said, I'm struggling a little bit with the settings. 110, the thing, I'm not scared of. This welder, if all you have is 110, don't let it back you off, because I had a Lincoln 125 Pro Core, which was a 115 only and a flux core only welder. It didn't hold a candle to this thing in 110. This thing will weld 110. I have been running 110 and 240 all on stuff like 1/8" steels and 12 gauge steels and some 14 gauge steels, you know, just doing some tests, some tread plate, this and that, and just laying down some bead. And this thing just, I mean, it burns and burns and burns, and it doesn't seem like it's not struggling on 115 at all. And here's another little thing about that, and I think I brought that up in another video. That right there is a 115 100-foot cord. Now, I do have 20 amp breakers and 20 amp plugs in my garage, but this is what I've been plugging it into. Yes, I know that that's probably not recommended. I don't know. I'm gonna look here and see if you can still read on the side what gauge wire this is. And I don't see any markings on it, but I would assume somewhere in around this would be a 14 gauge or maybe a 12. Now, you want to run it on a cord like that, I'd run it on a cord like that. That is a 100-foot RV 110 cord. That thing's like 10, I believe a 10 gauge 3-wire cord, and it was designed to carry amp for a long way. But I actually have been doing this welder has just buzzed right along, not any problem. So that's a big positive. On this chart, for the beginner, this thing jumps from 14 gauge to 1/8 inch. You got a big variance in there. If I remember right, a 14 gauge is somewhere around 78 thousandths. Anybody can correct me if I'm wrong there. It's plus minus that, but not by much. Up to 125, so you got a big jump there. You got nearly a 1/16 of an inch jump, and they're not showing that anywhere on this chart. Not even on the 240 side do they do that. And then 3/16 they jump to quarter, they jump a whole 1/8, you know, to up. Which, yes, maybe that's common, but what about here? My deal is that, man, you've got 14 gauge, you've got 12 gauge, 11, 10. Of course, by 10 you're getting to an 1/8, I think, right on it. And so you see this big jump. So right now it's set up on 35 thou flux cord. Like I said, I've been trying to get this to work, and it's more adjustments and stuff. I think I just about got it welding like I would go out and weld with it, maybe. I don't know, and it may very well just be the wire. I'm gonna try some other brand wires on this and see if that's what it is. But it does, when you're on auto or even in manual and you use this chart setting for this, it's hot. You gotta weld fast. So right here you can see in 120 volt, well they're showing it 120, so we'll just call it 120. And 120 volt, when you're in flux cord wire, 18 gauge to 1/8 inch on either 30 or 35. And you can see here that you're using A, and A is your wire speed, so amperage. Let's just call it, that's wire speed. So they're the same there, right? Then we start seeing a little bit difference on 16 gauge. And then you're just seeing some more voltage on this 35, which would be right. But then you go from 14, you're in like B or C, or C.5 or C.5, in between C and D on here. And your amperage is the same. And then you go to 1/8 inch and you jump to nearly the max power. That is, the J is the fastest that the wire will feed. So you're at 500 inches a minute. And then 7.5, so on 7.5, the same amperage between the two wires. So you got this gap in here. So if somebody was going to do, say, 12 gauge, you're going to have to calculate that out and come over here. So I'm just assuming that you're going to be up in here and around E, F, G. Like I said, this thing welds hot, especially in flux core. Now I wasn't having near the trouble, it didn't seem like, when I was on gas and running it in the solid core. So that kind of, for a new guy or for somebody who's learning welding, might be a concern. It might be something that you're going to have to get over here and do this. And it is. You got between 14 gauge and 1/8 gauge, and you can kind of come in here. But I'm even welding 1/8 inch back over here about 6, and then I've actually this in this auto mode or synergic weld, and even in auto, I mean, it stays blue, but I've had to cool it down for me. On flux core, not so much on the solid core wires, and so that tells me that maybe in the programming up here for flux core, the way they got it set and whatever their programming is in here, it tells it auto, there's got to be a difference between here and your steels when you're running solid wire, or I'm assuming so. So let's go over here, back over here to the table, and I'm going to show you some welds. These are flux core. Now, I mean, they're ugly. I've got ugly, and like I said, I'm trying to get the flux to be on top of this thing. I cannot get flux to stick. I mean, the flux, it's not over here. When you come out of this weld, there is no flux on top of here. It's all lined out down the side. I've slowed up, sped up, slowed down. The only one, when I was kind of cooling it down and trying to find out, is this one right here. Y'all tell me if that looks okay. Usually my flux core welds look kind of like this right here. And I've been all over trying to get this to what I felt like looks right. And some of them are just ugly. And if you go to cooling it down too much, you get lots of spatter. Another one, was going to try to get some stuff on here today. Video of actually welding, and it just wasn't coming together. Those top two welds, this is on 240 and this is 35 flux core. This was on 240, this one was automatic, and this one was manual. So now every one of these welds here, that's all me trying to get somewhere with 110. Up and down, trying manual, trying auto, trying it down above. And this right here was one, and man, it's just, I don't know that I would, I'm not, it's just ugly. It's ugly, and I'm not having any luck getting it out, getting it right. So let's go to test welds that I was doing with, this is all on solid wire. These two welds, was trying to do a fillet weld and get a pattern to it. It's not too bad. Well, I don't know. I'll let y'all be the judge. And here was a lap weld right here. Slowly get in this, let it focus. And I don't know, it's hard to show depth, but you know, that's, you know, and I'm no certified welder, so, and I'm practicing. I'm trying to get back, you know, welding. These here every one of them are in 240, and that was just, I just running the bead along here, semi trying to do a fillet weld in a piece of 1/8 inch angle. And I know that's not, if you trying to actually do a practice fillet, that's not probably really good, but this is what I had. Here's one. I was trying to get a pattern, you know, do stack of dimes with a wire feed, and got a lot of practice to do there, but it's actually not. I'm getting there, I'll get there. Right here, 3/8 piece of steel. Right here. And this is 3/8 piece of steel. And this is that welder turned up to as hot as it'll go in 240. I didn't think those were too bad. I, you know, got to get my travel speeds and stuff like that a little better, I think. Here, get some of this other stuff off of here. This is running longer than I planned on. Sorry, because I'm gonna try to get some welding on here. Okay. These three welds here was, I was just getting going. I just started the welder up and trying to get my feeds and stuff like that, or my travel speeds and stuff going. Down here, we're going back in. These were all three of these were in the auto synergic welding. These were all on 240. This is two 240 welds in, well, let's just call it manual off the chart. This one is a 240 weld, and this is trying to do a pattern or a weave, is what this one was in 240, trying to get a weld. Then I went to 110. These are all 110 welds right here, and it's just rocking along trying to, you know, trying to get some welds, trying to do a little bit of a pattern here, weave weld, thick weld, a build-up weld, and just going along. And then these ugly things down here was my first attempt at doing the flux core, changed over to 30 thou wire, and it was like, wow, this thing, and this is 110 too, man, this thing was burning hot. So, like I said, that's what I got. These are practice welds. I know y'all guys are wanting to hear this thing buzz along, and I promise I'll get something to buzz along, but I thought you'd just like to see maybe what's coming off of it, and do realize that I'm not a Bob Moffitt or a Jody from Welding Tips and Tricks. So if those guys got a hold of this welder, I'm telling you, it would be, I think I'd like to see one of them weld with this thing. Anyway, thank y'all for your time.